Angel Reese spent nearly the entire matchup against Toronto playing with an edge, throwing her weight around, getting handsy with Isabelle Harrison, and constantly jawing back and forth. But the second Harrison responded with the same level of physicality, Reese ended up on the hardwood looking for sympathy. It wasn't exactly a dominant performance either. Reese struggled offensively, shooting just 6 of 19 from the field for a disappointing 31%. Meanwhile, Atlanta avoided a truly ugly night, largely because of the efforts of Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard, who carried much of the load and kept the team competitive. So what do you think? After all the controversy and constant drama surrounding these situations, will Atlanta eventually decide they've had enough of Angel Reese? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear what you think.
Play on. Whoa, whoa, a lot of contact underneath and a very unhappy Angel Reese, as this has been brewing since the first quarter. Izzy.
And right there, that is a absolutely unnecessary foul from Harrison on Reese. And credit Reese and her teammates, because that's the angle you got to get the rock into her. She does a good job of sealing, and that frustrates the
play involving Isabelle Harrison ever made its way onto the highlight reels. Angel Reese had already spent most of the game setting an extremely physical tone. Through the first 3 quarters, she was consistently battling for position, delivering bumps in the paint, fighting through every post seal, and making contact with Harrison even on possessions where neither player was directly involved in the action. Yet none of it resulted in a flagrant call. It also wasn't the kind of physical play that went unnoticed. The broadcast microphones appeared to catch Reese exchanging words with Harrison multiple times during the first half, making it clear that this wasn't just routine competitiveness. There was an extra edge to the matchup, and Reese seemed determined to let Harrison know that this battle had become personal. None of that early
quarter, but this is where the tension started between Isabelle Harrison and Angel Reese.
Yeah, it was a first half battle. You'll see both of them here getting some calls, a little slap, it gets a little chippy, and then you'll see Izzy scoring on Reese, and she gives it the too small. And then this was the play. You know, 2 hands wrap around, and there's a lot of emotion in that moment. Izzy revs up the crowd a little bit on her.
Physical play was ruled flagrant, and part of the reason is that Angel Reese has built a reputation for operating right on the edge of what's allowed, constantly testing how much officials are willing to tolerate. She often initiates contact first, racks up fouls almost as regularly as she grabs offensive rebounds, and then reacts as though the whistle came out of nowhere. Isabelle Harrison, on the other hand, took a very different approach. For the most part, she let her play do the speaking, and in heated exchanges, that kind of silence can say more than any trash talk ever could. It suggests composure. It signals that someone isn't bothered. They're simply waiting for the right moment to respond. For longtime basketball fans, this sequence felt familiar. Reese has found herself at the center of similar moments before. Following the 2023 NCAA championship game, she famously directed the "you can't see me" gesture toward Caitlin Clark, sparking a national debate that continued long after the final buzzer. As the clip circulated repeatedly, Reese defended her actions by describing herself as a passionate competitor whose intentions were being misunderstood.
Think of last night when Angel Reese gets thrown to the ground and ends up in tears. The craziest thing is, the reason she's known is for trying to punk and talk crap to a 6'0" 150-pound Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark barely touches her. Common foul. And this is the reaction she gets. You know, she always wants to fight somebody that's smaller than her, but when it's somebody equal size, she doesn't do it. But Caitlin Clark, you say a lot of things about Caitlin Clark if you want to, but she ain't backing down from nobody. It doesn't matter the size, it doesn't matter who.
What separated the Toronto game from so many of these previous situations was the person standing on the other side. Isabelle Harrison wasn't a young player who was going to be intimidated or simply absorb the contact without responding. She's been in the league since 2015, and after years of battling in the paint, she knows exactly how to recognize when an opponent is trying to establish a physical advantage. Before her ejection in the 3rd quarter, Harrison had already put together an impressive performance, scoring 17 points while shooting 6 of 11 from the field. She wasn't merely keeping pace with Angel Reese in the physical battle, she was outperforming her where it mattered most by making a bigger impact on the game itself.
That Tamika and I are blind to here courtside, so we didn't get a look at it, but
here's the foul. Physical play down there. That's the reaction.
You know, they're both.
At the same time, the television broadcast kept returning to Angel Reese's reactions after nearly every physical sequence. Whether it was pointing in Isabelle Harrison's direction, motioning toward the officials, or exchanging words with whoever happened to be nearby, Reese always seemed to have something to say. Instead of looking like a player completely immersed in the flow of the game, it gave the impression of someone feeding off the surrounding tension, especially as her performance on the court continued to struggle. Offensively, things never really clicked for her. Reese opened the night 0 for 4 from the field, while Atlanta's attack found more success through Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard, who created offense off the dribble and kept the team moving. Meanwhile, Reese repeatedly battled in the post, drew extra defenders, and too often saw those possessions end with turnovers or heavily contested mid-range attempts that wouldn't fall. In fact, several analysts reviewing the same footage suggested that, at most, the play warranted a flagrant one, while others believed it didn't meet the threshold for an upgraded call at all.
Nah, she was going for the ball and got the ball. By the way, going for the ball and got the ball. I mean, hold on. How about another angle?
Corner
Another
that
angle.
Tamika and I are blind to here.
Let me turn this down. Look at her. Grab the ball. And then look. You're going to see Angel. Angel's going to launch herself up in the air backwards into Harris.
A flagrant 2 call isn't something officials hand out lightly. To reach that decision, referees have to quickly assess both the player's intent and whether the contact involved excessive force, often after only a brief discussion that lasts just a few seconds. In a fast-moving, emotional game, that leaves plenty of room for disagreement and second-guessing. When Angel Reese hit the floor, she immediately turned toward the officials with a reaction that some viewers interpreted as confidence that a major call was on the way. Whether she was truly shaken by the contact or simply understood how significant the moment could appear to everyone watching, the emotional response came quickly, and the tears soon became part of the story. Isabelle Harrison wasn't just another opponent. She had been Reese's teammate with the Chicago Sky the previous season and served as one of the veterans around Reese during her rookie campaign. Because of that shared history, this wasn't viewed by many as a random clash between two players who barely knew each other. There was already a relationship there, which may help explain why emotions surfaced so rapidly once the confrontation reached its breaking point. And while the ejection itself dominated headlines, it was Harrison's reaction afterward that truly caught the internet's attention and continues to fuel discussion online.
Angel Reese and Isabelle Harrison. By the way, you guys do realize these two were teammates at one time. It's got to make you wonder how much drama was actually going on in 2024. Because they played on the Chicago Sky together. And Isabelle Harrison yesterday had Angel Reese in tears. In tears.
What stood out the most was Isabelle Harrison's reaction after the decision was made. There was no heated exchange with the officials, no desperate attempt to plead her case, and no visible frustration directed toward the bench. Instead, she simply gathered her belongings and made her way toward the tunnel with a smile, and even a laugh. That response spoke volumes. To many watching, it suggested that Harrison had already made peace with what had happened and had her own interpretation of the situation. Rather than appearing shocked or outraged by the ejection, she carried herself like someone who believed the sequence had unfolded exactly as everyone had just witnessed it. Sometimes, the loudest statement isn't made through words or gestures. It's made through a reaction that says, I know what really happened.
As both are off, and Izzy apparently all laughs as she will have to be removed.
For Howard. And a foul. Oh my, where
happened. Then came one of the most awkward moments of the night. Angel Reese stepped to the free throw line with the arena unusually quiet, every camera locked in on her, and the attention of the entire crowd fixed on what would happen next. As Toronto fans showered her with boos throughout her routine, she missed the first attempt. Then she missed the second one too. In the end though, Atlanta still walked away with a 102-77 victory. Alicia Gray led the charge with 26 points, while Ryan Howard added 24 of her own, helping secure a convincing convincing win. As a result, Reese's overall stat line became almost an afterthought, overshadowed by the controversy and emotion surrounding the incident, something some observers might argue worked in her favor. And somewhere, you can imagine a few people in the Chicago Sky front office watching it all unfold and breathing a quiet sigh of relief.
Angel Reese, part 13! Our mean machine, me bounding queen! Let's get it! Burn! Nobody airballs lamps like Angel Reese! Burn! It was a bad day to be a rim in Toronto. Me bound and dual pray-up, the signature duo. Bang! It's like a car crash. You just can't look away, man. Bang! Two-handed potty shot into a me bound. I've seen it all.
6 for 19. That stat alone tells a big part of the story. When your shot isn't falling and you're occupying a major role in the offense, it's natural for attention to shift elsewhere. Critics would argue that's exactly why Angel Reese seems so emotionally invested in the battle with Isabelle Harrison throughout the night. If the offensive production isn't making headlines, the intensity and confrontation often do. Shooting 31% from the field certainly qualifies as a rough outing, but for those who have followed Reese's performances closely, they'll point out that this wasn't an isolated occurrence. Earlier in the season, she shot 13% against the Las Vegas Aces and 29% in limited action against the Chicago Sky. From that perspective, some observers don't see this as a temporary slump. Instead, they believe it's part of a larger trend, noting that her efficiency numbers have remained relatively consistent since entering the league, while turnovers have continued to be an issue. Then there's the rebound conversation. On paper, 11 offensive rebounds sounds incredibly impressive, and to Reese's credit, creating extra possessions absolutely has value, but context matters. When a player is converting just 31% of their shots, critics argue that many of those offensive boards are essentially extending possessions rather than finishing them.
She's a great low post player. She's really strong. She's got a good base. She got a good handle, and then layups. Really good. How many times will she get her shot blocked in one possession? Let's go. Not one. Not two. 3, bang! Getting her shot blocked about 2.5 times per game. That seems almost impossible. She's always doing the impossible, like smoking a layup 5 feet past the rim from underneath. Bang! She's Oprah Winfrey, baby. You get a prep. You get a prep. We all get prep. Her butter fingers. Butter pecan. Bang!
The reality is that Atlanta's offense isn't built around Angel Reese, and the underlying metrics make that difficult to ignore. When Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard are creating opportunities, the Dream's attack tends to flow with more rhythm and efficiency. The team's offensive production doesn't see the same boost when Reese is on the floor in a featured role, which has led some analysts to question how well her style fits within Atlanta's overall approach. That pattern appeared early in the matchup against Toronto. Atlanta struggled to find any offensive rhythm, managing just 13 points in the opening quarter. With the paint crowded and possessions bogging down, the Dream had difficulty creating clean scoring opportunities.
Alicia Gray, Atlanta's points leader, made against Connecticut last week. Reese still has the ball. In fact, Benley right now helping Toronto to this big lead early. Ladder deflected. Reese there to collect. Can't get off the glass. Up top, Reese. Thought she had it, but again, battles for a second.
Now look at the contrast with what Caitlin Clark brings to Indiana's offense. When Clark is on the court, the Fever tend to play at a quicker pace, create higher quality scoring opportunities, and become a more dangerous team from beyond the arc. Her deep shooting range stretches defenses far beyond the three-point line, pulling defenders away from the paint and creating space for teammates like Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, and Lexi Hull to attack open lanes and operate more freely. Critics argue that Angel Reese's impact is more difficult to measure in the same way. They point to lineup data and on/off-court numbers that suggest Atlanta doesn't experience the same offensive lift when Reese is featured heavily in the action. To them, those statistics raise legitimate questions about how much her presence directly enhances the team's overall efficiency.
Canada with the drive. And Reese blocked by Mabry, not once but twice. Yushkaita's pass picked off, and then a good touch from Harrison calls for it back.
Absolutely, that's your post player leading the defense full court.
After the game, Dream head coach Carl Smesko spoke positively about Angel Reese's composure, and in the language of coaching, that kind of praise can sometimes be revealing. Poise is often the word used when a player needs to keep their emotions in check and move forward to the next challenge. It's not necessarily the first description that comes to mind for the player who carried the team to victory. Meanwhile, the players who truly drove Atlanta's success were Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard, who combined for 50 points while Reese finished the night shooting 31% from the field. Even as cameras inside State Farm Arena remained fixated on Reese's physical battles and emotional reactions, Gray was quietly dismantling Toronto's defense possession after possession. She ended the game with 26 points on 8 of 14 shooting, including an efficient 5 for 9 from beyond the arc. She got to her spots with confidence, made quick reads, and converted opportunities without relying on whistles or constant contact to produce offense.
Izzy Harrison had Angel Reese in hell. Angel soft? Anybody? Is that what we... Soft? Angel soft. I'm more of a Charmin cat myself, but a lot of people like Angel soft. I'm just putting that out there. So, this was... She got ejected. Isabelle Harrison got ejected. I'll show you why in a minute. J-Mac is right. Harrison had Angel Reese in all kinds of the hell. 2 of 13 from the field.
Ryan Howard added 24 points through pure shot-making ability. She wasn't relying on set plays, off-ball screens, or cleanup opportunities around the rim. She created offense for herself, rose up with confidence, and knocked down tough shots simply because that's what elite scorers do. Between Howard and Alicia Gray, Atlanta had 2 perimeter players generating their own looks and forcing Toronto's defense to work on every possession. The pressure they applied stretched the floor and kept defenders constantly scrambling. Then there was rookie Isabelle Harrison, who provided a huge spark off the bench. She delivered a career-high 17 points while shooting 5 of 6 from the field, including 2 made three-pointers, making the most of nearly every opportunity she got. From that perspective, the debate isn't about whether Reese contributes, it's about whether the amount of offense running through her produces enough return compared to the efficiency Atlanta received from its other key scorers that night.
Thanks, Nikki. And Javon Gray with aggression and a solid rebound. Toronto actually won the first quarter, rebounding by 1. Knock up to Hillman. Good trade out for Gray. She'll take it from deep.
Atlanta's 34-4 surge in the second quarter completely changed the direction of the game. The broadcast presented it as the Dream taking advantage of the chaos that followed Isabelle Harrison's ejection, and on the surface, that's a fair way to describe it. The reality is that Gray and Ryan Howard have built reputations for producing regardless of the situation. Whether facing a fully healthy defense or navigating difficult matchups, they're capable of creating offense on their own and finding ways to score. And when you look back at Atlanta's most effective offensive stretches throughout the season, the common thread tends to be those two. More often than not, the Dream's best basketball has been driven by the shot creation, efficiency, and decision-making of Gray and Howard rather than any other element on the roster.
But watch out, the defense. This is what Atlanta brings, and Howard coast to coast. They're aware of her downhill attack, and then she gets to show it off. A response. And the ladder, deflected. Reese there to collect. Can't get off the glass, gets her own miss. Howard now lines up the 3. That one knocked in. Going to go from longer range. Howard with a strong take and a good.
In the aftermath of the game, Angel Reese's comments focused heavily on 2 things: the incident involving Isabelle Harrison and her rebounding numbers. From a public relations standpoint, some would say that's understandable. Highlighting the areas where you made an impact naturally shifts attention away from a difficult shooting performance. But eventually, the box score speaks for itself. Alicia Gray finished the night shooting 57% from the field while adding 7 assists. Isabelle Harrison delivered an incredibly efficient performance off the bench, converting 83% of her shot attempts. Meanwhile, Reese shot 31% from the field and was unable to capitalize on the 2 free throws that came after the flagrant call. Then you look at a team like Indiana, with players such as Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hull, and Sophie Cunningham. The Fever operate within a system where contributions are defined by execution and fit. The offense functions through spacing, ball movement, and players embracing their roles, rather than relying on headline-grabbing moments to validate their presence on the court. But critics would argue that a 102-77 victory in which Reese shot 31% and missed both free throws from a pivotal sequence isn't the blueprint for building a franchise around one player. And while one game doesn't define a career, the conversations surrounding long-term expectations aren't going away. As the league moves forward and the spotlight grows even brighter, future seasons will bring tougher evaluations and bigger questions than the ones raised during this matchup against Toronto.
Somebody thrown out of the game so you can actually try to do something, try to make a difference. Wow. Again, what the hell happened in 2024 on the Chicago Sky? How much drama was there behind the scenes? And then we all remember the drama that happened last year.
Another contrast people continue to point out is how Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark handled the spotlight that comes with being one of the most talked about players in the league. When Indiana has a rough night, Clark typically faces the media, answers difficult questions head on, and allows her performances to shape the conversation that follows. Supporters see that as more than a difference in temperament, they view it as a deliberate approach to leadership and accountability. The Dream rely heavily on Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard staying healthy, efficient, and productive on a nightly basis. At the same time, Reese is expected to provide enough rebounding value and overall impact to justify the volume of opportunities she receives. Critics argue that if one of those elements starts to falter, the cracks become visible in a hurry, and that's why this Toronto game continues to generate debate. Atlanta still cruised to a 102-77 victory, winning by 25 points. But those questioning Reese's overall influence point back to the same numbers: 15 points on 19 shot attempts, 2 missed free throws, and an ejection sequence that altered the interior dynamic of the game, opening space for players like Alicia Gray and Isabelle Borlaz to capitalize. For them, June 14th wasn't just another win in the standings. It was a snapshot of both Atlanta's strengths and the questions that still surround how sustainable its current blueprint really is.
Is the Atlanta Dream really that much better with her? They had a really good team last year. Or is she just sucking all the air out of the room?
You can explain away concerns after a 25-point win, but it's much harder to ignore them when an entire season's worth of numbers begins telling the same story. Isabelle Harrison was ejected on a play that many analysts believe didn't rise to the level of a flagrant 2. Reese then stepped to the line and missed both free throws that followed. Despite all the attention surrounding that sequence, Atlanta still pulled away comfortably. Why? Because Alicia Gray quietly delivered 26 points through efficient, composed basketball without needing a controversial moment to leave her mark on the game. What do you think? After all the discussion, controversy, and scrutiny surrounding these moments, will Atlanta eventually decide to move on from Angel Reese, or is she still a key part of the Dream's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest WNBA stories, reactions, and analysis. Check out the next video on your screen, and I'll see you there.